Maingrad.
You see, now I'll never say it incorrectly in the future again. Mainguard. And then you know Andie Steele Smith so well. Hello, Andie. How you doing? Where is Andie now? Andie, are you there? Andie is wondering. Okay, let's go on with Mark so long.
I'm here.
Mark, there you are, Andie. Oh,
Sorry.
that at last. Are you not a morning person?
No, I was just trying to get my face for radio on, you see, so.
Oh, you see. Okay, well, let's start with Mark. Mark, outside the bowl global, you've got to introduce us to your organization. I've never heard of you before, and you told me about you guys and the big work that you guys are doing all over. So, introduce us.
Oh, thanks so much, Janine. Well, I'll keep it as short as possible. So basically, I've been in the food industry my entire life, career, if you like. In 2009, I had a dream, and God asked me to use my skill in this industry to feed hungry kids in His kingdom. So we started up, really only started action in about 2013, and then 2015 um, started full time doing this calling. And a few years later, we joined up with an organization from America called Outside the Bowl, an incredible man and his wife, Jane Deborah Evans. And we collaborated, and we've been working basically together ever since. So, Outside the Bowl, just to tell you what the name means, is it started off as a missionary uh, calling. And when Jane Deborah started doing discipleship, the kids asked for food. And so they came up with a name. It's not just what you do give inside of the bowl, it's also what you do outside of the bowl, hence the name Outside the Bowl.
It sounds like outside the box as well, thinking outside of the box. Because that's when you look at Africa, when you look, actually, it doesn't matter where it is in the world, other places they've got wars which have the same result as people losing everything, all kinds of security. And the end result of that is people going hungry. And then you can't tell them about Jesus if they are hungry. So, God giving you this mission specifically to feed the children, the mission's end goal is always the gospel, isn't it?
Absolutely. So our strategy is pretty clear. We want to, by 2025, feed 5,000 children a day, physically and spiritually. So that is our strategy.
Yeah, but this is not rice, vleis, and groente we're talking about. What is the strategy practically?
So, when we started the whole thing, we actually started with rice, vleis, and articles, as you say, and then realized if we want to get to the masses and really scale this project, we can't just, give plain, like for instance, mealie meal. Mealie meal is great; it fills their tummies, but it certainly doesn't give them any nutrition. So we developed and did a lot of R&D on a product, a maize-based product, but it's instant and it's got all the nutrition that a young kid from 6 months to 6 years needs every day to give them brain food. Because we believe if we can focus on that age group and give them the brain food that's required, we can change a country. Because one of those little kids are going to become the president of this country one day.
So true. So true. Okay, well, Andie, then how did you happen on Mark and their work?
Thanks, Janine. Good to be online with you again. Look, Mark came into my life in a 35-ton truck with heavily armed guards at the beginning of lockdown, quite literally. He graciously came and donated 35,000 kilograms of food to us in Versanekral to distribute in that community, and then further to distribute in Mannenberg and so on. So a lot of the food that we both bought and were donated during lockdown to distribute amongst the gangs and so on in the Western Cape was supplied by Outside the Bowl. So we became brothers in distributing white powder at about that time.
White powder nogal. I'm still curious. I mean, they had to have heard about you in the first place. Who heard about who originally for that truck to actually pitch up?
Honestly, I have no idea. Mark can maybe answer that. I literally was in Versanekral one day, and this truck with guns turns up, and I'm like, "Great, we'll take the food. Let's go."
Mark?
Yeah, we actually got asked by this Department of Social Development, and so we also, when we drove, it was scary times. We were not sure what to expect. I mean, we had armed escorts. It was quite hectic. and arrived on site next to a Santa Carla feed manufacturing company. And we pulled in there, and Andie and a few guys were standing in a circle. Walked over, and I greeted him, and yeah, ever since then we've been brothers.
Andie, so you've been working with the gangs, and I mean, the results, the beauty of what God is accomplishing with those huge gangs deciding for peace. And then not only stopping there, starting to serve their community. Tell us about that.
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, right? I guess we're and I'm speaking as a man. We're all little boys. We all want our dad to say, "Hey, well done. You've done something good." And most of these guys who end up in gangs just haven't had that privilege. They haven't had somebody to come alongside them with a hand that will hug them at one side and clap them at the other if necessary. And so when you give these guys the opportunity to do something good, like helping to feed their community, they grab it with both arms 100% of the time. They get so excited, like a 10-year-old boy at times, just to do something good. They remind me of my boys when they clean the car. They come in and they say, "Hey, Dad, did I do a good job?" And I say, "I did a great job, my boy." And it's exactly like that. These guys just love the opportunity to do something good for a change, and it starts to change their view on how they look at themselves and how they can start to get an idea of how God sees them as perfect and amazing and wholesome and wonderfully made and so on. That's a starting point. And I guess the crossover in terms of outside the bowl is when we get the privilege of, as we have had over the last few weeks, of delivering hundreds of thousands of meals that have been donated by Mark and his team. We've got the opportunity to serve the community, but then we get to stop on a street corner and just share the gospel. We had Saturday last week or the week before, I think we had about maybe 60 or 70 gangsters on a street corner from four different gangs, all give their lives to the Lord. And okay, we've got to get them on a process of discipleship. It takes time, but that wouldn't have happened without the food to distribute to the community.
Okay, now I'm trying to understand you. You saying that now they're serving and people are recognizing the good work that they're doing. But there's a whole practical side to it. Is it now a guy? I'm now in a gang. I've given my life to the Lord. I'm working with you guys. Am I now seeing the need in my street and saying that these people need food? Then I talk to you and you talk to Mark. How does this practically work now? That each and every one of them gets an important role to play.
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, look, the simple reality is we are genuinely using what they already have, which is networks to distribute white powder, but it's good white powder rather than bad white powder, and just giving them something good in their hands to address the needs of the community. And yeah, I mean, these guys are literally calling now, saying, "Okay, can we have some more product to deliver?" And they'll deliver it out to the people in the community that need it most. And it gives, partly it gives them a good feeling. It just gives them a feeling of being able to do something valuable and useful and wholesome. And that's a wonderful thing in and of itself. It gives them just that sense of pride, that sense of acceptance, as opposed to being rejected and dejected all the time.
And I'm sure that it gives them in themselves, accepting themselves. I mean, they've got such a lot of pain and death in their past, to now be able to bring life instead of death, to bring hope instead of hopelessness. The previous white powder only brought death, and now suddenly you're putting someone in that same person's hand, you're putting something that can bring life. It's more than meaning. It's like your life suddenly makes a difference in other people's lives. It's literally something to live for.
Absolutely. It's for many of these guys, it's the first time they've had the ability to have a choice, because they don't really have a choice about dealing drugs. I mean, that's a controversial statement, but in many senses they don't. They need to put food on the table for their families, and that's the only way that they know how to do it. But this gives them a choice to do something positive, and they can actually choose a positive thing and go, "Hey, that was amazing."
Yeah, but now you get saved. You're still in a gang. You're still on the streets. You still have your bills. What's the practical outflow now of getting saved? Yes, you are doing this as well, but does that mean your previous flow of income now stops or not?
So it's a really good point. I'll flick on to Mark in a second, but one of the things that we're working on at the moment together is actually an internship program with Outside the Bowl to get 3 of the senior leaders of one of the gangs that made peace in Fasant a few weeks back, or a couple of months ago now almost, and to get them into a residential program outside of Fasant for 3 or 4 months to disciple them, and to then give them skills, life skills, faith skills, and community building skills, so that hopefully we can then integrate them back into their own community, so to speak. And when I say their own community, it's not that they deserve to be in that community; it's just where they currently are, if you like, and give them then the skills and the physical products to be able to sell the product for a nominal profit for themselves, not for a profit for us, but for a nominal profit for themselves, so that they can literally take a good white powder and sell that for a profit rather than a bad white powder and sell that for a profit.
Mark, I want to get back to you because I'm listening to the whole structure of how this plays out now. To me, this is very interesting how God makes this work at the end. The sovereign God's got so many plans up his sleeve. With what you guys are doing, the need is just too great. I mean, in Africa where we are, you're talking millions and millions. If you start handing out anything, you'll never have a lack of place of offset for what you're giving out. But this, to me, feels like it's got more meaning. It's got more eternal meaning than just handing out food.
Oh, Janine, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. That the need is so huge. I mean, God can make anything possible, but I don't think we'll ever, be able to fix it. We surely along the way can change a whole lot of lives. I mean, in Africa, there's about 5 to 7 million kids that have food insecurity. And so if we can just do 500,000, we're already making a 10% impact. That's quite huge. And I've said this before, the only way we're going to really fix this, and my heart and my calling is obviously these little kids, is we've got to stand together, not just as organizations, but as countries, as governments, as a world. We've got to stand together and find the funds, because there is solutions. There's amazing things one can do to include, people in countries in partnerships to blend and feed and stuff. So the answers are there. We just need some clever people involved and funding, and we can make a massive difference.
And also the networking of what you're talking about now. It seems that God is doing this all over South Africa. I'm finding more and more church networks, fraternals, organizations starting to talk together, realizing that where in the past it was each for his own, because everyone wanted the funding, you see. That's why we didn't work together, as we all needed all the funding. But it's like God is literally intentionally moving the way we think around this, isn't it, Mark?
Absolutely. I mean, I said it last week. God is on the move. There's something supernatural going to happen. And yeah, we in unity we have massive strength. And it's like you say, there is enough funding in the world. But if we stand together and have a massive organization that can prove and show massive impact, we will get the support we need. But if it's little individual NGOs and non-profits trying to raise funds, people want to support an organization that they can see has impact, not only in South Africa, but also globally. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve, and working with Andie and others to create this unity.
Andie, I want you to speak to South Africa. I mean, if there's someone in my life that I see that works with a lot of hopelessness and a lot of hope in 1 week, that I'm seeing how an invisible God can actually change people's lives in a practical and an eternal level, then it's you. So I want to ask, speak to South Africa, impart some of that hope.
Yeah. Wow. What a privilege. Thank you. You know what? I think the realization is, if we all realize that we're all the same, we all have the same needs, the same desires, and the same brokenness, that therefore gives us the platform of commonality to be able to help each other. And so for me as a privileged person who's South African by adoption, but not by birth, to have the privilege of sharing with, thousands and thousands of young men and women of color in particular, it might sound daunting, but it's actually incredibly simple. And so my encouragement to South Africa would be Whatever you do, don't do nothing. Do something, even if it's literally. I often tell people when I travel internationally and have the privilege of preaching that one of the most radical things that you can do in South Africa is go to Mug and Bean and buy a cup of coffee and simply say to the waitress or the waiter, "Molo Sisi, what is your name?" Because that's recognizing them, that's giving them agency, that's giving people a sense that you care and that you're real. And that's exactly what Jesus would do. He'd probably buy better coffee than Mug and Bean, but he'd turn up and he'd just ask the person their name and just be present in that moment. And I think those three words are probably the most powerful ministry words that I've had the privilege of learning over the last almost decade here. And that is just turn up. 3 words, just turn up.
Just turn up. Mark, Outside the Bowl Global, if people want to connect with you guys, where do they go?
Well, they could connect to our website, outsidethebowlglobal.org, and they'll find everything about us, where we operate in the world, and any information. They could also, if they wanted to, email Lauren, Loren, Lauren at outsidethebowlglobal.org.
There you have it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post that for you on Facebook. It's already streaming everywhere. Under the comments, you can check the contact details to get hold of Outside the Bowl. Guys, thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you that you're thinking about doing that and doing it is surrendering to Jesus. And let's see what God's still going to do going forward through you two very vital people in this kingdom. Love you. Thank you very much.
Amen.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless you.
Blessings. Thank you.
Things are beautiful because the parts are not the same. Just take a look at all the ways, sounds and seas and clouds.